So Augustina Oili is joining us all the way from Seattle. I believe it's the morning in Seattle, and she is a senior product designer at Toast, and her outstanding work has received recognition from 20 prestigious awards, including Red Dot Design Awards, IF Awards, and many others. She is also a judge and assessor for several renowned international design awards, such as the Davey Awards. And we're thrilled to have her here with us today, kicking off this first session as part of the Design DNA conference. So Augustina is going to get up her slides, and I'm going to hand over to her now to deliver her presentation. And there might just be a slight pause while she gets up her slides and she gets started with the presentation.
Yeah, hi everyone. I am Augustina, and thank you for coming to my presentation today. So what I want to talk about today is starting fresh, how to efficiently establish a design system from scratch. I know Roshin has already introduced me, so I just want to quickly go over the slides. I'm Augustina. I'm the senior product designer at Toast, and we are one of the largest point of sale system in United States. And I'm also working as the secretary of Interaction Design Association in Seattle. Also co-founded the Ideate Institute of Design, Engineering, Art, and Technology. We are just a group of people who are passionate about using all different resources to improve the world. Yeah, in my spare time, I am working on my own projects and also submitting my work to the awards and receive some recognitions from design awards. Also volunteering my time as a jury for many awards and also speaking on events and also working on some individual research as an individual researcher. Yeah, that's all about me, and let's go into the meaty part of this presentation. Okay, so in today's presentation, I want to talk about why it's important to have a design system, either if you are a design group or design company or startup, established company, why is it important? And the second thing is how to start a design system from scratch or with an existing branding, and some myths and tips. Okay, let's get started. So first of all, why is it important to establish a design system? So having design system would definitely help with consistency across all different screens and also help maintain brand consistency. Let's think about if we have all different buttons across all different screens, that will look very, very strange and feels very Frankenstein as well. So having design system would will be helpful with consistency across all different screens, across all different pages, and that will also create a visual identity for the users, for the consumers. And when people look into your product, they see a consistent feeling and branding. They know this is your product rather than something else. And this create a very seamless impression to them. So having design system would help with consistency. And next would be efficiency. If you are collaborating with someone else in the team, no matter they are product manager, engineers, or other designers, definitely having something like design system would help with streamlined communication between different designers, between the product manager, and help with handoffs. So whenever you are handing off the design to engineers, you can use this design system as a reference, and during the design development process, they don't need to always come back to the file, to the thing to rebuild all the elements you use, all the components you use. They will just need to go to the design system and take them from the design system and directly implement that into the actual work. And also, this also helps with the designers and developers speaking the same language, which means whenever you are doing the design, the developers know what it looks and they will not referring to something else. They will always come back to the one you created, and just to get everything aligned between you and the developers. And also scalability. So think about, we only have the mobile app for now, and we want to build up the website. Having design system would definitely help with this process, to think about how your project would be scaled. Or we now want to launch a new project, and maybe it's a STEM mobile app, and how can we do it more scalably? So that means you can having a design system would help with this. You can do this in a more scalable way by just reusing the same component or just reusing the same visual language. That would be very helpful. Okay, usually for a design system, it usually contains a couple of things: the color palette, the typography, which is we use it more like the fonts, and also the iconography icons, spacing and layout, component, patterns. That means something it can reappear again and again, and voice and tones. These are usually for like a text copywriter. Like when you write something on the like for example, like the tooltips, you want to make sure your voice and tones are always consistent across all the tooltips. And image and media, this will be very helpful for the designers to finding the image and media that always present a consistent branding or feeling to the users. Accessibility guideline, this is very important, especially we want to create an inclusive world, and interaction behaviors and more. Because there are so many other design principles or like the design system component. I will definitely recommend you to look into them more, and I can list all of them here. Okay, next let's talk about how to start a design system from scratch or within established branding. So first of all, I would suggest with the start with an inventory audit. What that means is you can go through all the pages, all the different components, all the things you have on hand, including the current and existing UI pattern, like the button, like the card, like all the things, all the components you have. And note for any color usage, like what colors they use, what kind of UI style it is. Is it more like the rounded style, or is it more like the sharp style? And what's the typography they use? Like which part is the heading, which part is the body text, all those different components, making them into a table to record all those things. And then next, note for any inconsistency. Sometimes if there's no design system, that you can see very many like inconsistencies across different screens. Like you can see many buttons. Some of them are like the dark background with the white text on it, and some of them are like the white background with the dark text on it, or like the radius can be various, some of them with a large radius or some of them with the small radius. All the things would be very interesting to see all those inconsistencies. And then if they already have the existing design system, definitely review them. That would be very helpful as a starter, and to make sure everything would be consistent. And then defining the visual language. That means we need to think about what are the color palettes. Usually for color palettes, we have one of the primary color. This could usually be the brand color. And we have the secondary color, which would be a color that's a little bit different from the primary color. But when they combine together, they would not look too weird. And we also have some light and dark variants. So in this example from the Google Material Design, you can see we have the primary color here, and we have the dark variants and also light variants. Same as the secondary color here, we have the darker variants and the lighter variants. We also have this many colors to think about. That means we have the primary color, secondary color, which will be mostly used for interaction color. And we have a neutral color. So neutral color usually are different shades of gray. And this will be helpful when you want to use something really natural, like the body tags, sometimes like dividers. You cannot use like something too out of the box. So neutral color will be helpful with that. And we also have some semantic colors. For semantic colors, I mean, like sometimes you need to show warning, sometimes you need to show arrow or success information. And these colors serve as this purpose for communicating some information to our users. So when users see this color, they know what this color usually mean, and they just create a natural association between the meaning behind the color and the color itself. And if you can, if the primary color is a very semantic color, like the Kentucky Fried Chicken as example, we all know that their primary color would be red, but red has actually the semantic meaning behind it. It usually represents arrow or danger, something. So you can see in this example for Kentucky Fried Chicken, they didn't use a lot of red on their screen. They just choose one of the neutral color or maybe a secondary color, which is black on the screen. So it doesn't feel too overwhelming or like everything's in danger. That kind of feeling to the users. Next would be typography. So for typography, there are so many different variations. So keep in mind there are typography for display. You can see here display tags for headline. They look a little bit different than the typography for large chunks of text. For example, like title, subtitle, and body or label. So in this format, I would strongly recommend all of you take a look at Google Material Design style and typography. They have very, very like thorough list, a very full list about what kind of thing you can look into. Like they have an example about display. They have headline, title, body, labels, and those things would be very helpful. And you can even create variations under each of them. Let's say display, you can create display bold, display median, display light, regular, display light. You can have all this kind of variation, and that helps create a dynamic user interface as well. And also you can think about the layout. Sometimes they have all different layouts. Like you have the column layout, which are like one or more vertical blocks of the content within a panel. And then you have the fold layout. That's usually for relatively small screen, which are the foldable. And like create a natural gap between all the two displays with the fold part of the device. And also have the margin here, usually are the content and the space between content and the edge of the screen. And the multi-window mode, that means if there are multiple apps or multiple windows open on the device simultaneously, how it will be look like, what's the grid, what's the spacing for this kind of mode. And panel, maybe it's like a layout container that houses other components and elements within a single app. That's very flexible. And the spacer usually means the space between two panels. And it's the same as that before. Like if you are interested, you can look into this into Material 3, Google Material Design 3. That would be very helpful for you to get you more about this setup. And next is the spacing. So for spacing, definitely try to remember we always follow a 8-pixel grid, which means you can see all the spacing, all the like the size of the component, it can be divided by 8. And this would be very helpful for you to keep everything consistent in this digital world, and also make the life a lot easier for developers. and same as sizing. So for sizing, always follow that 8-point grid or 8-pixel grid. That will be very helpful. I know for lots of like beginner in design, they just draw random rectangle, they just draw random like as card on in their file. But now you know that you always need to follow the 8-point grid, which means like the size of the component of the, or like the width, the height is need to be divided, being able to divide it by 8 pixel or 8. And you also need to think about the visual style of all the components you have. Maybe it could be rounded, or maybe it could be cut. Like what if it's like it has the radius. Everything on your screen should have at least look like the same radius. For large component, it might have bigger radius, and for small component, it may have small radius. But they should all look like the same. If you decide, let's say if you decide to go this way, all the components should basically look like this, the same fitting. And icon sets. So for the icon set, there are so many things we can share. There are this kind of outline icon. We also have the bolded icon, like the filled icon, all those different icons. And you can see the icons actually they are the same component. They look very similar, but they are not the same visual design. You can see this one is more like rounded, and this one's more sharp. So to think, you need to make sure the icon set also matches with what you have and the style you have here for the visual style, and to make sure all the things are consistent. And if you are building the icon set from scratch, I would strongly recommend you finding designed or existing icon library that will help with you to establish the consistent branding overall. So you don't need to work on all the icon yourself. And if you are designing the icon yourself, usually we use 16 pixel multiplied by 16 pixel as a starter. And you can see here we have this 16 pixel by 16 pixel, and we leave some space in between the outline, the edge of the icon and the icon itself. And the only thing you can anything you can put in icon, you can only put in this purple area here. That means it cannot exceed that kind of bounding area, and no matter what shape the icon is, it should always stay in this area. Okay. Now we've already talked about the building the visual branding, visual feeling of the design system, and we are gonna talk about the detailed component, which I call it molecules and compound. For molecules, usually there are less combination of different sorts of like elements or components. You can see here for interaction common buttons, we have the text, we have the icon. It's a combination of the two visual identity I just talked about. And we have this outline here. And for button, we have so many different buttons. We have elevated button, which usually are the buttons associated with the shadow. And the filled button, the tunnel button, the outline button here, and also the text button. And each of them can have the variation. Let's say they can have the icon at the left, they can have the icon on the right, or they can just have different sizes, like the large filled button or a small filled button. All those different sorts of variation with being able to apply to all of them. And of course, each of them has its different meaning. For example, the filled button, it usually means primary button, which means that's something you want people to click on whenever they see that on screen. And for tunnel button and also outline button, it's usually for secondary button. That's just for just providing this button here, so when people need it, they can click on it. For text button, you just need to blend in this button into all the components and don't need to draw too much attention to it. We also have all different other buttons associated with icon. So you can see here we have the standard icon button, which will be the icon itself, and being very careful about choosing this one, because that means if you are just showing the icon itself in no text, you need to make sure the icon is very clearly communicating what it is. Let's say here we usually know this is favorite and this is the save it, or just save it for future, something like this. And we also have the contained icon button, which means we show the area they can click with the icon, like the filled icon button, the toner icon button, and also the outline icon button. And we also have the icon field button. And I think this is the most accessible one. Like, you have the visual icon here to let people know what the meaning of this button is. And also you also provide some text here to let people know this is something associated with Navigate. And for interaction, we also have the combination of the buttons, I would say. So we have the segmented button, which you can click on multiple things, or like you can switch between different pages with the segmented button. And some of them has the icon and text on it. Some of them just are pure text, and some of them are like the pure icon or pure text, and some of them are single select, and some of them are multi-select. And we also have the interaction, which is like the text fields. So for text fields, there are so many different variations. Sometimes you can see at here, you have different stages as well. The first one would be the default stage. Like, if there is no interaction, what does it looks like? And also if there are some interaction, like people are actively inputting the text there, what does it look like? And also we can see here we have the icon as the starter of the input text or text field, and also we have this icon at the end. It can also be like the unit, all the things there, or prefix, suffix, supporting text. All this component you will need to take into consideration. And also there are different style, like sometimes some of them are just having the underline, and some of them have the outline here. And here are some other molecule interaction components, including like chips, which you can use as one of the things, such as select your selected the filter or input or suggestion. And we also have the menu. Usually, like when people click on it, they can get this thing to select, and the search bar, the checkbox, radio button, all the things. I call it molecule because they are relatively small and just small combination of different components. Next, we will talk about compound. So compound will usually be more complicated, like the badge, the tooltip. It's like, and also like the rich tooltip, which you have basically like a card. You have the title, you have the information you want to provide in this tooltip, and the button. And here also you have the information you want to provide, and the button, the action button as a notification post, and some progress bar in the indicator. That's a little bit more complicated than you can think of. Usually when you need to create the upper, this kind of like progress color here, and then you need to show the background color as well. So we also have the containment. So containment usually means like something you are holding with it. You're like holding something into it. So this is like the card format of the containment, and it can be elevated with some shadow and filled with some color in it, or maybe just outline, just to show the difference between the background and the card itself. We also have the list format, which you can see here. We have different components, and divider using this kind of format, and also dialogue. So dialogue usually contains with the large title and body text and some action associated with it. This is just to communicate all the things between users and also the like the interface they can interact with. And the navigation. Navigation would be relatively simple, I would say. Like sometimes the navigation is a left rail navigation. Like if it's on a tablet, you just need to click this to navigate between different pages. And then you have the this kind of I would say it's like more like condensed format. You can click between different pages directly. And some of them we have the bottom navigation bar, which you can toggle between different, you can tap between different pages in this bottom navigation bar, or you can have the tab format. You can see here the files, the trips, the explore, like all the things they are showing in different tabs. Also like the overview and specification. Sometimes for navigation, it usually just is a simple search, and you can use the voice search. You can just directly type in the search to navigate between different components. And here are some other components you can think of, like the time picker on the mobile, and the date picker, the button sheet, which I also call it a button drawer, where people can it happens like a drawer, like from the bottom of the screen and scroll up, and also the header and the carousel. All this component usually means like the more complicated combination of all different sorts of component. That we just created in the compound. Okay, now I want to talk about the myth and tips about the design system. So as a myth or tip, like, do you think this is a myth or a tip? You should build the design system first, then work on your design. You can type in your chat. Yeah, I see someone saying this is a myth. That's true. Um, Usually the process I take is like a little bit back and forth process where I just need to keep iterating on the design system. The first step I take is definitely the deciding the visual identity, the visual branding of the design system. As a guideline, I know what's the color I want to use, what's the typography, the font size, all different things like shadow, also like all the radius, all the things, the color. And then I started to use some of the screens, some of the this design system to build up some of the screens and see how it looks like. Does it look good with this color combination? Maybe some colors are too light when it comes to the screens. Maybe are too dark, maybe the contrasts are not enough. Then I will need to go back to adjust the design system and maybe adjust the color of the component, or maybe adjust the spacing of within each component to make it look like the feel I want it to be. And then I do some more design and come back to do design system, which is very interesting that this is a little bit like the back and forth process, and very helpful if you see the design system you created in actual screen and you can see how it looks like, then you can go back to keep iterating on it. The next one would be a design system could never be perfect. Is this a myth or a tip? I like it. I see some mixed myth and tips answers in the chat. This is a tip, actually. I would say, as a designer, don't think about make a design system perfect. At least no perfect in your first round, because when it comes to design, I think there's no perfect design, because there always are the new trends coming in, new components you want to create, or new variants, new variation of within each component you want to create. So I would say a better design would always come in the next iteration, and iteration is always the key when you're building the design system. So don't being too asphyxiated of the design system you just created, because there always will be the improvement to it. Yeah, that's all about this presentation, and really appreciate the time, and let's get into the Q&A sessions.
That's great. Thank you so much, Augustina. That presentation was amazing. You went into so much detail as well. I've learned a lot listening in, and I particularly like your myth and tip section that you did. So yes, let's get into the questions. So if you have a question for Augustina, please put them in the Q&A tab. It should be on the bottom bar at the bottom of your screen. So we've got the first question that's come in just from someone who's remained anonymous, and they said they mostly use 4px spacing, like all the spaces are multiple by 4. Is that right, or should it be 8px?
Usually for like large design system, like the Carbon design system, or like the Microsoft Fluid design system and some material design system, we use 8 pixel. But sometimes it can go down to 4 pixel, especially when the screens are pretty tight, like the mobile screen. You can use 12, which means like it cannot be divided by 8 but it can be divided by 4. But mostly, I would say just keep consistent with 8 pixel. That would be very helpful across a consistent spacing. And because like if you are increase the space by just 4 pixel, it doesn't look very obvious, especially like on a very large screen. But it's like the 8 pixel, that would be very great. You can also set it to 4 pixel. I would say 4 pixel is more like the 0.5 times of the 8 pixel. That also count as like following the 8 pixel grade. But I would be very cautious about like using 12 pixel or 20 pixel, or maybe 32 pixel in that, not 32, like 28 pixel in that sense, if you are following the 4 pixel grade.
That's great. Thank you so much for answering that, and hope that helps as well. So we've got another question from Carol Novak. So she's asked, do you suggest to use design systems for every project, sorry. So she's just asked, do you use design systems for every project? She's worked with people that don't see the point for every single designer to set up the design system for every project they produce. So it'd be good to know what you think about that.
I think if you are collaborating with other people, like developers or other designers, having design system would definitely help with everyone speaking the same language. That means like whenever you are using a button, you are not copy pasting that from other people's work. You are just directly dragging from your design system and ensure like every component, they look the same across all different screens. And also, like whenever you want to change any of the elements, like the components, you want to change the color of the button, you just need to go to the design system file and change it from there. You don't need to go to your design file, change it one by one. I think no matter like what kind of projects you are doing, definitely it's very helpful to build a design system. If someone they don't see the value of building a design system, definitely try to first of all understand why they are saying this. This is very helpful for you to think about how to convince them, how to persuade them, and then think just to point out that why it's important to have a design system. It can help with consistency across all different screens or different components. It can help with the efficiency, the communication between different team members, where everyone speak the same language. The developers don't need to reinvent the wheel. And also it helps with the scalability. Like if you are just doing one screen, then maybe you don't need to have the design system, but you are doing multiple screen and you are doing maybe multiple products that's with similar visual identity. So it's very important to have this design system here. And in fact, I'm doing lots of like myself, like solo project, and I'm still building design system for my solo project because I feel that's an easier way for me to manage all the components and also ensure all the designs are look consistent across all different pages. So I would definitely highly recommend using design system or establishing design system.
That's great. Thank you so much for answering that question. And Carol, I hope that helps as well. So Julia has said, thank you for your presentation. After doing the design audit, what would be the next step that you usually do? Assuming there is already a product, where do you recommend to start in the design system process?
Yeah. So for doing the design audit, I would just recommend like take a look at all the pages and to record where are the most inconsistency or which kind of components they are currently using. Maybe they have the tabs, they have the cards, like just to record, do an inventory audit, like oh they have used the card, and maybe the card they come into different sizes. They have small card, they have bigger card, they have like medium-sized card. Just taking in just to record everything and take notes for everything you see, everything you think could be improved, and to having a basic understanding about inventory audit. And next, you can think about, if I am creating a new design system based on this inventory audit, what I should do. What kind of color I should choose, what kind of visual identity I should go with. Even you can refer to any of the existing design system you have. If it's like mobile, I highly recommend like the Material design system. If it's like the desktop, I will highly recommend the Microsoft Fluid, or maybe the the Carbon design system, which is created by IBM. Also, just you can also refer to some of the design system you really like. I personally also like the Airbnb's design system, and I always refer to that as well. Um, so it would be doing the inventory audit, getting an understanding about what the brand has, what the project already have, and also then next choosing a design system and choosing like the visual identity based on the inventory audit. Maybe you can refer to the design system or other things, or maybe you can just pick your own design system, all the colors, typography yourself, and basically creating a visual identity.
That's great. Thank you so much. And Julia, I hope that helps as well with that answer. So I think we've got time for a couple more questions. So Natalia has said she's wondering if there's a space to put comments in design systems, as things need to be clear, as other designers or developers might not understand the system without any comments.
Yeah, the kind of annotation, I do that all the time. So sometimes I just highlight, oh, the spacing between these two components is 8 pixel, and this component is like 16 pixel. I use the red line to highlight that or annotate that. And sometimes I use the text, the notes, saying that this is the hover state of the button. This is the press state of the button. This is like the regular state or like disabled state. Um, don't feel like if you are building design system, you need to use the visual to communicate all the things, text, notes, annotations. Try using all the things that you think would be helpful for other people to understand your work, to understand all the design components you have.
That's great. Thank you so much. And Natalia, I hope that helps as well. So we've got another question coming from someone who has remained anonymous, but they have said, what are some of the most common mistakes you see teams make when creating a design system, and how can you avoid them?
Yeah, I think sometimes I see people, they created the visual guideline, like the color typography, and but when they create a component, the compound or molecule, they just forget, or they just forget to refer to all the visual identity they just created. They just going kind of out of the route. So I think when you create a new component, always stick within the visual identity you created earlier. And if you think the visual identity it doesn't work, feel free to edit that and make all the components consistent. And I also see some people, they really like detached components from the design system, and don't do that. If you find yourself detached component, you will need to go back to the design system, that file, to edit that component, because there could be something this pattern, this new pattern could reappear again, and in that case, you will need to have a design component that created in your design system, so you can always reuse that new component. So you always go back to the design system to make the edit. Don't detach the component.
That's great. Thank you so much for answering that as well. And Magdalena has asked, how do you manage changes in design systems and how do you communicate changes to the developers? In brackets, she said, excellent presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. How do I manage changes? That's I think it's very helpful to always being transparent about your developers, like what kind of changes you made. Whenever I see anything I want to change, I go back to design system file to change them. I would just leave a comment there and add my developer saying that, oh, here, I made this new design component for this one. Please take a look and let me know if you have any questions. And if I make some big changes, or like some changes would be very dramatically change the design system, I always set up meeting with my developers to verify if this is feasible to make this change, if how much work will it add for them to implement this change, and definitely try to think about in a more collaborative way. I know as a designer, design system should be something we have the ownership, we own it, but it doesn't mean that we should always like making all the decisions ourselves, because developers, they are like the stakeholders of the design system, and for every changes or like for things they need to work on, they should be at least being able to know that they need to there are some updates. And I know there also are some tools to manage all the changes, like Zappling. It can document all different versions of the file. So it can make the developers or make the designers easier to trace back all the different components. That will be very helpful, but I personally don't do that. More like I just use the Figma versions for all different components. Yeah, so in conclusion, stay connected with your developer, and then definitely try to inform them or try to collaborate with them if there are any changes in design system, and don't leave them out.
That's great. Thank you so much for answering that. And we have one final question that has come in from Jacob based on what you were just talking about. How do you name your components? Do you have any tips?
Yeah, I personally just having different interaction, like in different pages, like for all the components associated with interaction, I put in on the interaction frame, and I say that's like button. For button, I have the primary button, secondary button, outline button, text button, link button, all those different things, just to try to go in a little bit refer to all different components we have here. And I also for like the containment, or like like something you see like card, I just put them into a different like board, art board. And I would say I follow mostly about the design system, existing design system. Like I take a look on like the material design system or fluid design system, and to see how they name their component, and then I create all the things based on what's the functionality, like the interaction or information, or just like the sometimes I create like cards as its own component, a frame. So if you don't, or if you are not sure like how to name your component, I would say take a look at other design systems, like how they name their component, and I think that would be very helpful. And also it can give you some inspiration about how you can name your component and make all of them organized.
That's great. Thank you so much for answering that last question.